What is going on in the Vancouver real estate market? Best answer, no one knows. And if they know, they don't want to say because it's probably wrong. So what do we know? Well, CMHC released a report. Rent is dropping. Vacancy rates are rising. Sales are down in volume, but only a little bit on the actual price. CMHC is cautiously predicting anticipated pent-up demand. And the Canadian Real Estate Association is predicting something very similar. Something very similar. They had a record low number of sales. This is the lowest in decades. They had 23,000 sales. Previously, they had 26,000. The average is down. This is the lowest in decades. They're saying the lowest in 20 years. CMHC is saying the lowest in 30 years. But they are also saying the highest number of listings ever. Ever. Sales have only actually dropped about 4.5%. The average price right now in the whole of Vancouver, 1.14 million, which includes condos and houses. So if you separated the houses from the houses are higher and the condos are lower. So there's a couple different scenarios predicted. One is a buyer's market and the other is a market crash. There is a very distinct change. It is officially connected to a sudden flatline of previously rapid population growth, higher interest rates, higher construction costs, unemployment, flat incomes, a stagnant economy on the brink of recession, a trade war with the US, lack of business investment, just a general depressed outlook of uncertainty. But still, nobody wants to say which outcome is going to happen. Is there going to be a market crash or is there going to be a buyer's market with pent-up demand? What we also know, there is a report from House Sigma. So far, these reports have just hit the market at the beginning of the year. Here we're in early to mid-February. House Sigma says the average time on market has increased. Last summer it was 75 days on market. This year it is 100 days on the market. But even they do not want to predict either a buyer's market or a market crash. Nobody wants to predict. Now in Toronto, which has similar conditions but a little worse, CMHC has acknowledged what the Canadian Real Estate Association is saying is happening in Vancouver, that this pent-up demand, there's more listings pent up in this demand than there are buyers. There's more people who want to sell than there are people who want to buy. So that makes it even harder to predict. So they're saying that in Toronto, but they're hesitant to say that that's happening in Vancouver, according to CMHC. Here's another statistic. There's 7,100 new listings this month alone, last month alone, January of 2026, 1,470 sales. So they are outnumbering it by almost 4 or 5 times the number of listings to the number of sales. If there's a number that I would watch, it is that. If you want to predict what's happening, it is that. But people are still hesitant to enter the market because they don't trust that they've seen the bottom. They don't trust they've seen the bottom and they're too scared to enter because they don't want to be stuck sitting on some starter home that they can't sell. And they're looking for a deal. What I think was missing in CMHC's report is what they had previously reported on last fall, is that Vancouver is sitting on a record number of 2,500 unsold condos that they know is much more because there's a shadow inventory of unlisted properties. What they did acknowledge this year is that a very high number of listings will be hitting the market this year from projects that are coming to completion. Didn't predict how many are actually going to come onto the market. They just said large. They just said a large supply of completed condos. They didn't give a number, like 2,500. They just said large. If anyone knows how many there are, it would be CMHC, because they've probably financed most of these projects in one way or another. They have relationships to the people who have. So if anyone could make a very realistic determination of what's out there, it would be CMHC, but they're not. What CMHC did acknowledge, and I think this is interesting, they are predicting that the return to office mandate is going to be successful, and that will encourage people to move to Vancouver, and that will increase sales. So even though they know there's going to be this rapid increase of condo supply, they're also thinking everyone is going to move back to Vancouver. So that's a prediction I would keep my eye on to how accurate it is. I don't want to say they're wrong, but like, come on. They expect the actual city of Vancouver to increase and the surrounding area to become more affordable. So they don't want to say price decrease, but they'll say more affordable. Got it. So even with the slight decrease in interest rates, along with, well, a slight decrease from the previous high, along with favorable market conditions, it should predict a buyer's market. But previous expectations have failed, and even realtors are hesitant to make that prediction. And so is CMHC. Nobody really wants to say what is going on. So there's a couple scenarios that could happen, and then CMHC made an alternative scenario where the market crashes, and they just said, well, that would be bad. If the economy crashes, that would be bad. I don't want to say uncertainty is if everything is okay in the economy, if that tells you anything. But nobody wants to say. So the only thing we know with any certainty is that supply is rapidly increasing, rapidly. Houses are sitting longer, and no one is buying. That is the only thing we can say in Vancouver with any certainty, and there's only going to be more supply. Nobody's dropping the price, but nobody's making offers. Well, they are, but there's very few. So that's our best prediction. So the smartest voices in the room on real estate are not willing to make any prediction at all. So the best prediction is uncertainty and more uncertainty. If you want to hear more about the market and any other updates, please like and subscribe. We look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Jen, your host.